Thank you, Mark, and good morning, everyone. We will be starting today's program with a panel discussion surrounding the technological innovation and instruction of virtual production workflows in film schools. Our moderator today is Dr. David Long. David is director of the Rochester Institute of Technology's Center for Media, Arts, Games, Interaction, and Creativity, as well as associate professor for the Motion Picture Science program in the RIT School of Film and Animation. Prior to joining RIT in 2007, he worked as a development engineer and imaging scientist with Eastman Kodak's Entertainment Imaging Division, where he was regarded as a key contributor to the Vision 2 Film Initiative, earning a Scientific and Technical Academy Award in 2008. He received a Bachelor's of Science in Chemical Engineering from the University of Texas at Austin, a Master's of Science in Materials Science from the University of Rochester, and a PhD in Color Science from Rochester Institute of Technology. He has many research interests, but of particular interest to today's discussion, he's worked a lot with designing color management workflows for virtual production stages. So please join me in welcoming Dr. David Long.
Thanks, Jake. Hello. There we go. Thanks, Jake. That's the last you'll have to hear about me. The rest of our time together is going to be focused on my esteemed panelists. So I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves, starting off with Mr. Eric Weaver.
Hi, I'm Eric Weaver. I work for the ETC. The ETC is a nonprofit think tank that's been around, about 30 years, founded at the behest of George Lucas. I work for USC's film school, but I face a little bit more towards the CTO side. So I report directly up to the CTOs of Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, Paramount, Sony, and Epic Games. And we look at next generation technologies.
Thanks, Eric. Ian.
Hi, Ian McSpadden. I'm the CTO of Arizona Public Media, which oversees the PBS and NPR stations within Arizona. And I've also been very active at both the universities there in helping them design programs to help further broadcast engineering and broadcast production. They actually helped design the Sidney Poitier studio here in LA at the old Herald Examiner building where ASU has one of their programs based.
And Chaitanya.
Hi, I'm Chaitanya. I'm the Vice President and CTO for Whistling Woods. Whistling Woods, we'd like to think, is India's premier film and creative arts institute. Over the last decade or so, we've been doing a lot of development work in new workflows. The latest one, which we're going to talk about here as well, is virtual production and how to integrate it into a full-fledged, proper, industry-led filmmaking program.
Great. So Chaitanya, actually, first question for you. We're going to give a shout out to international efforts in virtual production education to begin. So tell us a little bit about Whistling Woods and the degree programs you have, the attention to virtual production, pretty new topic. So give us a sense of how rapidly you spun that up to be able to teach the students.
Thanks, David. So we're a 17-year-old school. We're an industry school. We're by the industry, made up of the industry, for the industry. Almost all our faculty are working professionals. And over the last 15 years, we've done several development work in order to basically answer the question, what next, when it comes to technological advance in the film and entertainment industry. And the latest of those is virtual production. Now, our approach to virtual production is something that I'd quickly just run you through with slides. And the reason why I'm doing it is just easier for both me to explain and you to understand how we've approached it. This is not the only approach, but this is the way that we felt appropriate. So, could we? Yeah, okay. So the first and the most important thing that we very, very quickly decided and which we saw helped the penny drop in the cinematographer's minds was you're no longer shooting video, you're capturing data. When that drops, then you have all the legacy traditional cinematographers are able to very, very quickly adapt to the on-set virtual production or ICVFX environment. And our approach has essentially been that. We've understood the workflows. We have built out the pathway, what are the skill sets needed, and what is the problem solving needed, and most importantly, application of virtual production, rather judicious application of virtual production. And we started with the SMPTE wall chart, as everybody should. This helped us to then further break it down at the short level So the smallest unit of filmmaking is the shot. And at the shot level, how does virtual production work? You have a bunch of action assets, things that move in the middle of the shot, and then you have the world, which doesn't move, but your point of view of looking at the world moves. And you essentially look at them individually, break them down into further skill sets. Then you put both of them on a gaming engine, which is virtual production enabled, basically means allows camera object motion tracking. And then it gives you 3 outputs. Now, the leftmost output is the one that's used the most, but as computing gets better, we will be able to do 3DOF and 6DOF out of game engines as well. Now, these are the skill sets that we already had, which just very crudely ticked. And the boxes are the ones that we needed to build out. And how we build out is by working with media and entertainment tech partners. So the first of them was Qualysys. And again, you feel free to laugh. The kids did this. So Vivek, who's sitting in the first row here, is our senior faculty for virtual production. And we works very closely with Qualysys in order to build out a very, very accurate mocap setup. So now you can have, Transformer do Indian film dance, right? The next one we looked at was photogrammetry, and this we both did inside out and outside in. So really, really large structures as well as small ones. So this is a 200-year-old Portuguese house in Goa, which took about 25,000 photographs and then synthesized it into a photogrammetry asset with volume, which we could stick inside a game engine, take a camera, and walk in. So this really allowed them to understand how do you look at really, really large size structures. This is something which is outside in. It's again a set that was put up for a student project, and photogrammetry scanned. Thanks to Unreal and thanks to reality capture, we're really able to get high quality textures. The next one was WallCap. So WallCap, we worked with Azure Kinect and built something out. So this is just a quick test of what we did in WallCap. This is the first raw that came out, and then obviously it was refined multiple times to, this is one of the shots that was taken for a all CG virtual production film that basically the students made. The next one was DMX control, because again, lighting is by far the most critical aspect of making sure the uncanny valley doesn't exist in virtual production. So this is again of advanced metadata transfer protocol, which the next session is actually about that. So this is just some examples that we've done. And with this, this took about 1.5 years, approximately all this. And then we were able to now hand it off completely to students, start to train students. And this is just some shots of the student work that happened out of this. This was purely unsupervised. We briefed them for 30 minutes in the morning, and then we left the room. And they would call faculty only if they got into trouble. And thanks to Vivek and the gang, we never got a call during the day. This is a 25-minute film. Currently, it's doing the rounds at festivals. Hopefully, it wins. The really interesting bit is this is the first time they were ever doing large format virtual production. We've had industry people coming in to have a look, and even they were surprised how well the students were able to grasp this. And honestly, it starts with that first statement. You're no longer shooting video, you're capturing data. Right? So that's basically our approach.
Thanks, Chaitanya. Ian, tell us a little bit about Arizona State. So I know activity on the main campus, activity here in LA. So how are you approaching, or in your past interaction with them, how are you approaching enabling students to get into these technologies and proper training?
Well, first, I'm thrilled to see so many both high school, community college, and university students here. It's a tremendous opportunity for you and a great association to be part of. Arizona State, about 4 years ago, really started to look forward to say, okay, for production in their Herberger theater system, said, we want to expand what we provide students. I took part in building several virtual sets and volumes in Arizona. I helped design the one out here. And that was a learning experience in itself, because it was the early days of how do you set these up? What are the requirements? What kind of cameras do you need to use? And the one thing we found very quickly was, once they were built, okay, who designs the world building that goes into them? Who manages the camera systems? Who understands the lighting? There were a lot of components that the university realized, yeah, we see programs here in developing them. And they've created not only bachelor's degrees, transfer degrees, and masters of science, masters of fine arts in these areas, because they found that the industry is out there looking, going, we're building these sets, 5 a day probably around the world. And there aren't enough folks that understand how to fully program and utilize them. So you're looking at a tremendous field to get into, because it's like the early days of Google. Virtual production is only going to grow. I mean, it's being used right now, everything from entertainment to education to science. So it's not just that you're going to be going out there doing movies or doing video games, but you might be doing some form of telemedicine programming, and University of Michigan's doing some great stuff on remote learning with the VR and AR sets. So the exciting part is a lot of universities are stepping up globally. Rochester Institute of Technology has programs. There's some in the UK and Germany. I mean, there's opportunities globally to study in these areas, and the schools, especially I think in the last 2 to 3 years, have really spun up the technology and the understanding of the course. And SMPTE's been fortunate enough to help provide some guidance in that area, to provide you guys a real interesting pathway to participate in one of these programs and really find enjoyable work after the fact.
Thanks, Ian. So Eric, ETC is a household name. We know you guys really, really well. Can you tell us a little bit about curriculum development?
So kind of in vein of what you're talking about, what people are doing, is we've been doing some action groups, including curriculum development. So how can you standardize different components within this, that people can have a consistent idea of what's coming out of a workforce? So we've kind of partnered up with SMPTE here on this particular one, and key individuals from the out there in the working world, from NEP to Epic Games and others. So we really see it. So we helped develop some of that SMPTE chart, or the RIS chart. I don't know, it's kind of on the next slide, you can't see in front of you. But the other way to kind of break this down is 3 pillars. And those 3 pillars are basically creating content, building and managing stages, and shooting on stages. And understanding how now you can then take each of those things and say, what is an on-set operator 1, level 1, or level 2? And taking those and creating an outline or a course curriculum that's consistent. So that's some of the efforts that we're doing there. Other efforts we also do are things like Fathead or Ripple Effect. We like to get out there, get our hands dirty, kind of Marine Corps style, hit the beach first, and what do we not know? How do we build this plane in flight, and document all that? So you see a lot of documentation coming out of us around those efforts.
Thanks, Eric. I'll speak on behalf of RIT real quick, because I think amongst us we have a great representation of curricular development, degree development. If you've seen in the news, even some of our friends at NYU are starting to offer named programs in virtual production in their film schools, which is very cool. Yes, I know.
Masters.
Exactly. I think that what's important, and what we work together regularly, this group, we've been chatting on behalf of the RAS and on-set virtual production for a couple of years now, and what we've recognized is the spectrum of support to that next gen that's required. You need your practitioners, and Eric, I appreciate you summarizing the major departments. That helps organize that curricular focus. But it's also the engineering and technology background side. So at RIT, our emphasis is actually on the engineers and the researchers who are solving some of the technical challenges, working hand in hand with industry. Elements of that across all of our institutions for sure, but it's so important, especially to hear that at a venue like SMPTE, to realize it's not just about taking something someone else has built and learning how to use it well. It's developing those younger skill sets to be able to challenge the things that don't work well yet and have them contribute to innovation, engineering, and mixing in that technical acumen on top of all the effort in operational acumen that we want to teach our practitioners.
Some of the most brilliant people I know in this field are in their early 20s.
Absolutely.
Making a difference in setting the new standards.
So Chaitanya, I'm going to go back to you. I want to talk a little bit about industry connections, right? We can't do this in a vacuum. not at all. It's sometimes difficult to understand who in industry is actually leading the charge on these evolving technologies. It's a crazy landscape. So at Whistling Woods in particular, you have a very, very strong relationship with industry right on campus. Talk a little bit about how that's benefited your students and the kind of things you're hearing from industry, the needs that you can contribute to.
So, and I cannot stress this enough, it's, kids, younger ones, under 25, they're outstanding, great with tech, they're great with managing complex tech, but you can't teach experience. And what we've realized is if you bring in someone who's got 25, 30 years of experience, and you're able to enable them to wrap their head around the technology, they actually are able to create some amazing, unbelievable content. And that's really what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to bring the industry in and help and have them taken through the tech workflows and have them wrap their head around the tech. And once they do that, then it's up to them to kind of take that leap and try and create content, create case studies around it, how to shoot certain things, how to solve certain problems, how to work around, building out essentially what's a new workflow, which has never existed. And that's really, honestly, what we've noticed. We've noticed that bringing in DOPs, bringing in directors, actually bringing in a unit, right, where you have a director, a DOP, a VFX supervisor, and then enabling them to get into this workflow and find their place in this really works out. And we've had, decent success with it. We have, I would say, about 100 hours or so of virtual production content out there right now on Indian film and TV and OTT, which I think is pretty good for something that's 2-3 years old.
Nice. So Ian, next for you, and I think that judging by my review of our audience participation here, there's a lot of folks who would be keen to know the answer to this. What are you finding industry needs as far as skill sets? What do these students need to be learning to be immediately useful to industry as they graduate and come out and join us?
The fun part is it really runs the gamut between technology and creative. So if you have a bent for hardcore engineering, the folks at RIT are doing things with, syncing monitors and systems and motion capture, the technology and the IP behind it to make sure that it all functions. Because when you have one of these big LED stages, it looks like a giant, 40-foot screen. Well, there's actually, 50, 60 monitors back there with 10 servers driving it. There's a lot of networking and technology that actually makes it work. But then you go to the creative side of your brain and say, okay, how do you world build these? What is, if you have a producer that comes in and says, I want to shoot a movie on a VR screen, and you go, okay, what are you looking for? To have the vision to say, and so many of you have grown up gaming with VR headsets on with wraparound 40-inch monitors, and you've seen what Unreal and all the gaming engines can do. How do you port that knowledge and experience and vision into a virtual world? So when someone wants to shoot the movie, you're like, okay, I set the screen up, he's got reflective parts on it. We always defer to The Mandalorian, which was one of the very first ones to really utilize this. And the fact that when you saw the reflections on his helmet, on his chrome armor, those weren't being put in post. Those were coming off the screens, which was a effect that made it so much more real and so much more immersive. And again, for all of you that have been gaming for a few years, probably, that immersiveness is important. And I think you see the details that probably folks who are in their 30s and 40s and who grew up on Ataris will never quite understand. So use that to your benefit. And I think like I said, there's a great range of what the companies are looking for, because and we're trying to lure people also away from the gaming industry, because a lot of people want to go work for Epic Games and they're great organizations that do great work. But there's content being created for all platforms. And it ranges. I've heard folks from corporate. Almost every big corporation in this country now has a VR volume. Most of them don't know what to do with it yet, but they know they need one, so they're trying to figure it out. Advertising agencies, sports teams and leagues. The number of places you wouldn't think that are putting these in are doing it because they know that there is something there that they want to take advantage of, and they've seen the exciting and interesting work that folks are doing. So when it comes to looking for work, if you have technical or creative skills in these areas, you'll be beating them off with a stick as far as offers and opportunity.
Thanks, Ian. So Eric, ETC has been great at doing exemplary production and then taking the story of that production on the road. And that's especially useful to academic institutions that haven't yet stood up formal curriculum. So can you talk a little bit about what you guys did with Fathead and how you've shared the story and how you're trying to get in front of as many people as possible, especially younger people?
Yeah, so we did a roadshow, or started out earlier this year, and with SMPTE's help on this one, and we went to places like NYU, Roseanne Limiacelli over there who has that program, Columbia, Texas A&M, or Texas, where you went?
Texas is the only one. There's not another school.
Riley over
I
there.
don't know what you're talking about.
Megan over at University of Nebraska. So we did about 10 different locations where we just went out and we talked about what's going on and why this is exciting, and showed that kind of spectrum of creativity from taking things like mocap data. How are you building the VAD or the world? How are you then testing it out, getting on the wall? And we had a lot of really great blessings in that particular production. Like, for example, we got to be the first people to shoot on Amazon Stage 15. So they gave it to us for a month there. In the end, we produced a film that was also completely done in the cloud, for example. So all of our REL Extra was done real time to S3 bucket at Amazon, and we did coloring and post and everything in the cloud on that. So we got to explore all these next generation workflows and just going out there and getting people excited about this stuff, because it's a ton of fun as you get in there. The students just really light up, especially if they have any kind of knowledge or background in some of this stuff. I do have to make a comment on that about that technology versus creativity. Things like RIT and color in the volume are so critical. And there's so few people who actually teach some of that stuff, and so I just want to say thank you. You guys are doing awesome.
Very cool. We've got just a couple minutes left, so Chaitanya, the last one is for you. I think it's also an excellent transition to your session, which follows. So can you talk a little bit about research and innovation that's happening in the academic setting that's finding its way into partnership with industry?
Yeah, so we did a bunch of problem solving. Now, we don't have time in this session to take you through all of it, but I'm going to, basically quickly, because the next session is kind of focused on that and what we've done there. So essentially, the wall chart, these are the two things that we decided to focus on. So the tracking bit, and then you've got the data movement. Right. Oh, is it visible? Yeah. The data movement. Now, in order to do that, you need to build out a metadata transfer protocol, which will then allow you to do everything. It allows you to link a high-speed motion bot into virtual production. It allows you to bring it in a turntable. It allows you to bring in a treadmill, which allows people to walk towards or away from the screen. It allows you to do like a lot of things. And those were some of the things that then we actioned. So this was the first ever encoder test that we did. And I mean, the reason why I'm showing it to you is because really we're literally pasting things together and just to see if we are able to catch the speed of the treadmill and get an object in Unreal to move real time. And once that happened, then, this is the latest demo. This was at the Media Monk stage in Delhi, where they were doing a demo, their first virtual production demo. And they essentially trusted us to build in the workflow. So there's many of these, and some of these we'll talk in the next session, so I don't want to I want to quickly skip this, because what I really want to talk about is this. And this is where it's very, very important, especially for the industry. Judicious use of virtual production. If it's a couple is shooting a rom-com in an apartment, please don't do it in virtual production. Book a flat, or book a house or whatever, book an apartment and shoot it there. And that's what we realized, because the typical hype cycle is, everything will be done in virtual production. Nobody will need locations anymore. No, that's not true. So we then actually built out a flowchart. Sorry, you can't see it. I have a breakup one on the next slide. So this is the flowchart where there are 10 different scenarios, and 9 of them say don't shoot on virtual production. Don't shoot on a LED volume. Some of them say shoot in green screen. Some of them say shoot in real location. Some of them say shoot in green screen, but do it in post. You don't need to do it real time. And that's really what I think has finally enabled people to start to think. Because honestly, the biggest enemy of virtual production is bad virtual production. Right?
Correct.
And we don't want people to do that. So it's odd because we're the ones in the industry in India who are pushing virtual production the most, and then we're the ones who say, don't do it everywhere. So, I mean, people think we have cognitive dissonance. We don't. This is the right way to do it, right? And I mean, I'm happy to share this with you. We've shared this with a bunch of other schools within India as well as other schools that we work with. So this is essentially, I would say, a really, really important thing that everybody needs to think about, right? So, yeah.
Thanks, Chaitanya. I reflect back on about 10, 15 years ago, sitting here wishing there was a decision tree for how many times you should shoot stereo 3D. Yes. And it was maybe 1 out of 10, and only if you did it well. So I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions before handing it over to Chaitanya's panel. Anyone have any interest? And I will give up my microphone so that you can ask a question. Looks like we got one up here.
I heard you mentioning about Amazon Stage 15, and I know that's like more of a 360 stage. How do you think that is like more applicable in the sense of compared to a volume stage where you only get like 180 degrees comparatively to like completely surrounded by technology?
So I don't actually, I mean, that's an absolutely beautiful and amazing stage. I don't think bigger is better at this point. I think the new trend in 2.0 of OSVP will be better is better. So things more towards the Sony Stage 7 as we kind of progress. And again, nothing against Amazon, they're amazing. But you have to set your shots up, and you just got to do your homework in this situation, and you can get everything just fine at an Orbital or some of these XR studios or stages. Any of these other places. Again, you just got to know what you're doing. It can also be a hindrance for a smaller production as well. When they first called me saying we switched from one stage to the other, this new stage was 5 times the size. They're like, we need an extra $12,000 just to put dirt down to cover the floor. And I'm like, no, you don't have $12,000 for dirt that we're going to throw away. So it's not always better.
And the cost is important because, a wraparound stage like that is $50,000 a day to rent it, where you might just get an LED volume to do similar stuff to be a fraction of that.
$150,000 a day.
Just to add to that, so we have an animation program and we also do stop motion. Literally, they're doing it in front of a 4K display, right? Because everything is anyway miniaturized. So the foreground stop motion, the background is a 4K display. So it's not. You don't have to have something the size of, whatever. Sorry, 60 feet? How many? 200 feet? What?
I think Sony's 240, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, 240.
Just a quick question. If I don't have $1 million budget, is there an inexpensive way I can get into virtual production in a film school?
Well, I can certainly say that green screen production with the servers and the motion capture can do very similar stuff. The LED volumes are great because they provide that instantaneous feedback, and teaching someone to act on a green screen or interact with one is more challenging, but the costs go tremendously down because not only is it the cost of the screens and the servers to drive the images, it's also the air conditioning and the power. A lot of studios don't have that equipped. They weren't designed for that because they were built as black boxes. And big volumes like that take a lot of electricity and a lot of air conditioning to run.
Partner relationships as well, industry partners out there. Also, there's a life cycle of these LED panels where you could buy secondary off market, which might be able to save you some money as well. There's other ways.
I'm going to move us along. We want to make sure we stay on schedule, and for that last question, stay tuned. Noah Kadner's got a great session on sustainable volumes, and we're going to talk a little bit more about accessibility for educational programs as well. So thank you all. Yep, thank you all very much. Chaitanya, I think I'm going to formally announce you from this seat to take over the next session, and then I'm leaving.
Thank you so much.